Hello and welcome to the Responsive Family Sleep Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Hawley, holistic sleep coach, lactation consultant, peaceful parenting educator, and mom. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by all the conflicting sleep info, frustrated with sleep information that just plain felt wrong, or searched desperately for a truly gentle and responsive sleep approach, then you are in the right place. In each episode, we'll be answering your most pressing baby and toddler sleep questions, busting those sleep myths, and helping you understand truly developmental, biologically normal baby and toddler sleep, plus encouraging you to trust your intuition along the way. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. This week, I want to talk about tips for unlatching from night feeds, right? I think maybe most of us have been there, right? You nurse to sleep, and then there's this delicate dance and struggle around, can I unlatch without you waking up? And that can happen at bedtime, but it can also happen with overnight wakes. And sometimes we end up with a baby that just stays latched for long periods of time, and that can be a struggle because you want to get them back into their crib, or even if you're bed sharing, that you just get the ick, the skin crawly nursing aversion, sometimes with these really long nursing sessions. So, unfortunately, there is not a magic trick, right? There isn't something that is going to work for every baby, every time. It would be lovely, right? But that's not how humans work. So, I want to give you some food for thought, and some tips that maybe will help that nighttime unlatching be more successful. So, the first thing is that a baby or toddler who is heading to sleep tired, with good sleep pressure, in a good rhythm, well-regulated, is probably going to be easier to unlatch than a baby who does not have high sleep pressure or a child who is dysregulated at bedtime, right? So our basic concepts of supporting good quality sleep also tend to make it easier to unlatch. The next thing is often much easier to unlatch earlier in the night when sleep pressure is high than later in the night. And so if you have a baby that tends to stay chronically latched, sometimes it makes sense to address the part of the night where you are personally struggling the most. And I often find that's the later morning hours, right? The early morning hours, later part of the night. But that can be the hardest time sometimes. And sometimes unlatching then means baby's up at 4 a.m. and just won't go back to sleep. And that maybe is, worse overall. And so I found over the years that if we have a lot of nighttime nursing and struggles with unlatching, sometimes unlatching faster, nursing shorter at the first part of the night, when it's easier to do, just lessens that overall prolonged nursing just enough that by the time we get to 4 a.m., you have so much more cope left for a longer, more prolonged latched situation than if we just let it play out organically over the whole night. So that can be something to think about. And also knowing that practicing unlatching things at the beginning of the night when sleep pressure is high can also feel a little bit lower risk to see what works. So that's a little bit of context. Now, how do we actually unlatch in the moment, right? The first thing is often waiting until deep sleep to unlatch works best. And you may notice this because your baby's drinking very actively, right? Like those deep, long sucks with nice chin drop, big mouthfuls of milk. And then they're going to start to get more fluttery sucks, right? Lighter, faster sucking that's a bit more about comfort and regulation. And so that can be a sign that they are moving into deeper sleep. Now, of course, we all love it when they move into that deeper sleep and just pop off themselves. That's the goal. But, if that is what's happening, then these are not the tips you need, right? So waiting for those fluttery sucks, waiting for that deep sleep, you can also look at their breathing in general. Do they feel kind of melty into you, or do they still have some more resistance in their body, right? Those are other signs that they're in deep sleep. And then the next thing to think about, do you unlatch right away when you notice those fluttery sucks, or does your baby do better if you wait a few minutes. This is really individual, right? So it can take some experimenting. Some babies, as soon as they enter that deep sleep, you can kind of stick your finger in the corner of their mouth and slide them off. And other babies, if you just let them hang out there a little bit longer, they get that little bit more into that deep sleep and they're able to unlatch more easily. Next thing to experiment with, right, is do you unlatch while they're actively flutter sucking, or do you unlatch in a pause between bursts of flutter sucking? Some babies unlatch better while they're actively flutter sucking, right? They suck, and then, as you unlatch them, hopefully their tongue can kind of just get to the roof of their mouth and, they can kind of stimulate their own hard palate, which is something your breast tissue is doing. Other babies, that pause is an easier time to unlatch them, right? And so again, experimenting here. Does one tend to work better than the other? And then regardless of when you unlatch, right? We have sort of timing pieces here. But regardless of when you unlatch, a lot of babies will do better if you gently close their mouth. So gently push their chin up, close their mouth. You could do that with like a finger under their chin. So like that soft part under your chin, that's kind of the base of your tongue, right? The base of the bottom of your mouth. Close up. Or you can place your fingers more on their chin, the part that would have been against your breast as they're nursing, against your body, and kind of close. And again, they have that little bit of pressure that they would have had against you. Some babies do really well if you then kind of snuggle them in, maybe get their cheek to your chest. Others, maybe you want to just stay really, really still. And that's another thing that sometimes can really help, right? Like this is either going to work or it's not, I'll be honest, right? It's not one that we can do a ton of troubleshooting around. You can definitely experiment with the timing pieces. You can definitely experiment with where do you put your hand when you close their mouth? Do you snuggle them up against you to give that skin to skin? Do you just kind of cover your breast and your nipple, your chest, and kind of block that ability to relatch? Do you maybe hum and rub their back and sleepy time, back to sleep, right? Kind of give a little extra soothing, right? These are all things to experiment with. But the idea behind closing their mouth is to help that tongue kind of go from the down over their bottom gum line nursing position to up sealed to the roof of their mouth, appropriate resting oral posture position, and help them make that transition, right? Rather than like leaving their tongue down and all of a sudden they realize they're off nursing, they're unlatched, and, then they're rooting around and starting to pull themselves out of that deep sleep. So lots of tricks here to try, right? About when in the night you're most successful, when in their falling asleep process, when in their light sucking process, some different ways to try to close their mouth and help make that transition after you're unlatching them. And, some bigger picture scheduling and regulation things, right? If we can tire them out more, we can build a little seat pressure, we can support more big body movement and things that tend to help a baby get into that deeper sleep. It's going to support that process as well. So if you've been struggling with unlatching, I hope one of these tricks is successful for you and gives you some things to try. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this episode left you feeling more informed, confident, and encouraged on your sleep journey. And just a reminder before you go that nothing in this episode is individualized to your specific sleep situation, nor is it to be taken as medical advice. Take what resonates, ignore what doesn't, and check with your healthcare provider about any medical concerns. Take a moment to subscribe to this podcast so that you'll never miss an episode. And take a moment to rate, review, or share an episode you love on social media. All of that helps parents just like you find me, this podcast, and this gentle and responsive sleep information. I'll see you next time.